Okay, there. Oh, shoot. I got the riddle box. I have 2 stuff. And I'm just displaying some treasures I got. So far, it's every S tier in the game. 2 sapphires, a tattered page, coral, bird, the cup, and then the statue thing. I'm too lazy to read their names out. And this guy is a result of an unlock card. Now, I finished all of the cryptic notes quests. So we're gonna be reading out some lore after I gamble. We'll start with the codex. These mirrors were said to be treasures brought back from Italy by the first lord of the manor, crafted with purest Murano mercury for a century. They hung throughout the estate, bearing witness to every birth, every wedding, every death, and every generation of the Winston manor. Of the Winston family, the youngest child claimed to see things in the mirrors that no one else could. A blurred figure standing just behind them, a pair of sanguine eyes resting over their shoulder, watching. At night, when the little girl's blood struck the mirror, it cracked, not like ordinary glass. Something seems to spill out through those fractures. They could not see it. She could. Clumsy Raider. He was the least remarkable of the Shane gang, and the greenest by far. More than hunger for money or classics, it felt as if he simply drifted into this life without ever meaning to. Clumsy, short, and hopeless with even the simplest weapon, he was usually left to keep watch or haul the loot. A rough burlap sack hid his face, as if it could preserve what little dignity he still had. While the others planned how to break into the Winston manor, he stood silently in the back, hoping that this time he might snatch something first. Oh, my nose. So sorry about that. That night, the moment he climbed through the broken window into the manor, the screams and mad laughter that crashed over him like a tide. By instinct, he snatched up a plank at his feet and held it like the only weapon he could trust. Somehow the candlelight had gone out. The moon outside slept behind the clouds. As the dark thickened around him, the only hope he had left was the board left in his hands. He remained in that freezing night, the one from which there was no way out. The boundary between life and death blurred into nothing. He still breathed, he still walked, he still searched for a door that might lead outside. The darkness ahead felt solid. He swung the board over and over, trying to drive off threats he could not see. I'll get out somehow, he believed. With desperate certainty, and one identical corridor after another, one identical room after another, it never occurred to him that he already had been left there forever, clutching his last plank, abandoned by hope. He was the sharpest pickpocket in the slums. As a child, he learned how to slip a gold watch from a gentleman's pocket, without so much as brushing the chain. Hunger was his first teacher. Greed became his master for life. At 20, he joined the Shane gang, roamed the Yorkshire countryside, preying on isolated estates far from town. His eyes were frighteningly keen. A man's clothes told him his fortune. A widow's glow told him how much silver she lay inside. The rumors about the manor kept him awake at night. They said that somewhere in its depths, classics won by the first lord of the house and a bargain for the devil is more than enough to buy an entire street in London. That night, he was the first to climb through the window. He smelled blood, but greed smothered his caution. He thought perhaps someone else has already dealt with the trouble. For them, in a hidden compartment in the study, he found a small box. The instant his fingers touched the cold metal, a nameless chill crawled up his spine. There were no coins inside, only a single black feather. It thrust itself into his eye. He tried to scream, but what burst from his throat was the cry of a raven. Now he prowls the halls with the gray hammer he used to smash open boarded windows, still clenched in his hand. His eye sockets are two hollow black slits, where a sapphire glimmer sometimes flickers in the gaze of the thing that was fed within him. He is drawn to anything that gleams, a silver coin, a pocket watch, even a bead of dew. Once he fixes on a target, he hurls himself after it with persistence that chills the blood. Nameless doll. This rag doll was sewn by a mother's own hand, a gift for her daughter's 5th birthday. It had a linen body, button eyes, and perhaps once it had a name of its own. The girl carried it everywhere. On the nights when nightmares would not let her sleep, she curled up in bed, clutching the doll and whispering secrets into its cloth body. Secrets she dared not to tell even her parents. About the child in the mirror who always smiled at her. About the nightingale that taught her strange songs. She was its last friend. When darkness swallowed everything, she was still gripping its soft little hand. In Winston Manor, death was never the end. After all had fallen silent, it gained 2 fragments of a soul. One of them longed to be loved and feared being alone. At first, it could only twitch, dragging itself from the ruins into some corner. Later, began to wander the nights, searching for anything that might stay with it. It appears in the darkest, most hidden corners of the manor, beneath beds, deep inside wardrobes, in the shadows around the stairs. Its cloth has become black with mildew. One of its button eyes hangs loose. It does not attack, it only follows close and silent, and then reaches out with that worn, soft little hand. If you take it as the girl once did, a cold sharper than ice will seep into you, followed by an all-consuming loneliness. You will forget the people who loved you. You will forget that warmth ever existed. You will become desperate like it. You will become like it, desperate to find someone who will stay. Doom Poppet. When a lonely soul loses itself in the deepest dark, a soul filled with hatred will tear apart that soft body. This was the 2nd fragment it received. No longer pitiful thing that cast aside. It became a vessel for unalloyed seething malice. It no longer hides, it walks straight out of the dark, towards its prey. Its steps are stiff and wrong, each one accompanied by the sound of tearing cloth and twisting joints. In your fear, its hatred grows wild. When hatred takes dominion over it, it can no longer be soothed, only by stripping everything away, fragment of soul within. It can know peace, even then, only for a while. After all, loneliness and resentment never truly left this manor. Size. A cluster of bright balloons from London, chosen by a father for his daughter's 8th birthday. They were the last ornaments of joy this manor ever knew. A little girl in a white lace dress chased them beneath the ballroom ceiling. Her laughter light as her footsteps after the party ended. She begged to leave them there. Back then, they were vivid and bright like rainbows. Like a rainbow cloud hanging just out of reach. That night, when the doors of the empty ballroom were flung open, more than looters came spilling in. The wind entered with them, the heavy smell of blood, and from the turn of the staircase came screams that could no longer be held back. The balloon rocked in the draft, their dull reflections trembling beneath the ceiling like stars. Too afraid to look, footprints crossed the carpet beneath the banquet table, and then turned away. Only stumbling balloons remained, hanging in the air, watching everything come through the door. After dust and silence swallowed the manor whole, balloons drifted soundlessly out of the ballroom and wandered through its forgotten corners. At some point, their brilliant colors faded away. On their surfaces appeared blurred faces, as though trapped in silent agony. Fear, regret, perhaps endless resentment. Each balloon carries the last breath of a final sigh. They drift close to intruders, searching for their chance to let that sigh escape. The Pale Man. He was a most respected gentleman on this land. He inherited the family fortune and the manor, yet knew nothing of the chapters in his bloodline's history. No one dared speak aloud. He loved his wife and daughter beyond measure. He cherished them as the finest gifts of life have given him. He read fairy tales to his daughter by the fire. He taught her the names of every rose in the garden. When she began to change, sleepwalking at night, speaking to empty air, singing nursery rhymes that turned blood cold, he dismissed it as childish imagination. He summoned doctors, he summoned priests. It never occurred to him to summon someone who could stand against fate. The manor chose the cruelest way to destroy him. It called to him in the voice he trusted most. It looked at him through the most innocent eyes in fevered visions. He saw his wife and daughter being swallowed by the dark. "Kill them," a voice whispered behind him. "Kill them and you'll set them free." But when the sanguine madness finally loosened its grip, what he saw was his own dead soul. From that day on, his body did nothing but wait for its last release. He is trapped in this manor, forced to replay that night again and again. At the same hour, he pushes the half-lashed door with a blood-stained axe in hand, and walks towards the bedside with empty eyes. Then he suddenly stops, stares at his own hands, and releases a howl so full of grief it can't unmake the mind. In that cry lives enough regret and despair to shatter reason. But no one can understand why he raised the blade. No one can see what he saw. The cursed memory that belongs to this house. The most innocent devil had bared its fangs. Okay, so you're not a butler, you're just a man that was driven to kill his wife and kid. I might not trade with you anytime soon. Wraith. He was a quiet man, dutiful to the end. When he had nothing, the master of the manor took him in, gave him a warm hut, some food, and a little money to repay the kindness he took, get upon himself to patrol the grounds. When thefts became common in the area, every night he made 3 rounds of the estate, checking every window and every lock. He was a good guard, except for October 31st, 1863. When the Shane gang climbed the wall, he lay insensible with drink in his hut. By the time he jolted awake and stumbled outside, it was already too late. He saw the shattered window. He smelled the thick stench of blood. He heard insane laughter echoing from deep within the manor. He tried to rush inside, but some unseen force held him back. At dawn, they found him dead at the manor gate, still clutching his chain-bound axe. His soul remained trapped in that eternal night of failure. It always begins first with the first intruder crossing the threshold. He lunges after them with his rusted wood axe, believing that this time he might catch up, but he is always one step too late. The window had only just been pried open, the footprints only had just been left behind, the scream only just begun. He is bound to an endless loop from self-reproach and guilt. Forlorn Tome. The library of the Winston Manor was the most coveted private collection in Yorkshire. Yorkshire? Rare volumes once gathered from across Europe filled 3 walls of oak shelves. They said it held golden scrolls within, written in human blood by Venetian alchemists, torn necromantic pages salvaged from a burned monastery, and secret ledgers recording a century of bargains between House Winston and something infernal. Servants were never given the key to the library. Only blood of the Winston line could enter. One day a girl pressed her face to a crack beneath the door and peered inside. She said something in there was whispering in a language she never learned, yet somehow understood. On that night in 1963, the last scream in the manor finally died away. The lock in the library door clicked open by itself. The books that had slept there for 100 years seemed to hear a summons. They began to tremble in their shelves. The first to wake was the secret volume. Its spine cracked dryly, its pages just turned through by invisible fingers, and the deep red script upon them began to shine with sickly glow beneath the moon. Classics Archive. This jewelry box was a wedding gift from London. Once it held all of a lady's treasured adornments. Each night before bed, she would place her jewels back inside one by one, then close the lid carefully, as though completing a ritual that promised safety through the dark. The jewelry box was forced open with unprecedented violence. Blood-streaked, mud-caked fingers tore it apart and emptied everything inside into a waiting pocket. Its mangled hinge can no longer close properly, leaving the box escaping like a mouth on the verge of a confession. Now it lies in a dust-choked drawer, beside the shattered mirror in the room, staring up at the same dim ceiling that has never changed. When intruders appear again, it serves only as proof of that night, proof of a plunder that took place there. Golden spoon. One of the family's heirloom utensils passed through generations. Unlike the plain silver pieces in the set, this golden spoon stands out at once. It was usually brought out only for important banquets or moments of celebration, such as the birthday of the little mistress. At night, it lay quietly in the deepest pantry of the kitchen, unnoticed and untouched. It was neither found nor stolen. Because of that, the golden spoon remains in its finest condition, of all clean and flawless, as if nothing had happened at all. Once carried out of the story, it seems no more than an ordinary golden spoon. But when the next intruder finds another identical piece laying in the pantry once again, they finally understand that this place they explore has never been as simple as it first appeared. The Muse's Secret. Hidden beside the door frame of some forgotten room in that vast house, it waits with an empty heart. It yearns to be made whole again. It longs to hold what was lost. The vacant wooden niche waits in silence, waiting for the song to rise again. This is a secret that belongs to the Muse alone. A delicate lyre. Find it, return it, set it down with care at the very center of a wooden niche. The Muse's gift will soon appear, a reward for restoring what was hidden. Why is a nightingale carved upon the wooden niche? Why was its secret scattered through the other corners of the house? Let the nightingale sing, and the final answer will reveal itself. Haunted Doll. A haunted doll of unknown origin lies in the shadow of a corner, its lips tightly stitched shut with black thread. Nothing about its appearance or craftsmanship suggests a gift meant for celebration. Yet, the linen of its clothes is painfully familiar. An ashen face, curls stripped of their luster, eyes whose pupils can no longer clearly be seen. Her expression so weary, so sorrowful. It's as though those little shoulders bore secret too. Terrible and too heavy to imagine, but she cannot speak it. She can only remain silent. Pale flowers adorn the doll's head, one on each side, like two white candle flames burned down to ash. This white lace dress once belonged to a little girl. It was her favorite to wear. The red ribbon at the waist has darkened into a dull brown, like dried blood stiffened with age. Large painting. An untitled painting brought from the county auction house, unmistakably Victorian in character. It hangs on the corridor wall like a false window reflecting a landscape that does not exist anywhere within this house. On a night of carnage and blood, the gray oil painting was too large, too heavy, too awkward to carry, and so the Shane gang left it behind. The shadowed scenery blurred, fingers upon its canvas, held no appeal for the looters, with no eye for art. It was forgotten, buried beneath dust, just like the manor itself. The only mercy is that the canvas remains intact, whether out of spite after looting, or from simpler cruelty. Whoever caused ruin did not vent their rage upon the decorations lining these halls. Perhaps with cleaning and a new frame, they may shine one day again. I'm not correcting myself on that one. Fruit tray. It was once tended with care, filled with each season. With sweetness from orchards and distant fields, cherries, strawberries in late spring, raspberries and mulberries in high summer, pears and apples in autumn. Now and then, even grapes from the warm south. Not all fruit was loved equally. The plumpest and most fragrant were always taken first, and whatever remained was cleared away before the flies could gather. Then, after a certain night, fruit left behind was never touched again. A bitter orange from the Mediterranean became last to remain. In long, airless silence, green mold covered its skin, and insects hollowed it out from within. In the end, only the leaves were left to stand, still holding a faint scent of bitter citrus. Phantom crystal. An ancient crystal ore clouded through with a hidden core. When it was first mined, it was mistaken for an ordinary quartz, awaiting the cutter's hand, but no amount of grinding could erase the white haze inside. Once its true nature was revealed, its value fell at once. It began with a careless run. A little girl left with bruised knees. The crystal took a crack across its body, and one splinter vanished beneath the furniture. Once. That flaw had been no more than speck. Like mist, like a phantom, something shapeless has been sealed inside it since its birth. Even the later fracture could not force it fully into view. Only deep within the fissure, a different color stirs faintly, like an eye opening after millions of years, in the dark. Amethyst ring. Dignity, reason, piety. That was what the ring was meant to proclaim when it was commissioned. As a family heirloom, more than wealth, the owner wanted legitimacy. Something polished, something inherited unquestioned. To pin virtue to a gemstone is almost absurd, yet a few habits are older. That deep violet once appeared beneath the light of London's banquets, where it stood for pedigree, inheritance, and bloodline kept pure. That splendor has long sunk into family's yellowing history. The ring still glints in the corner of a curio shop, but no one looks twice. Its value died with the lineage. It once adorned until the last stone became only a tear. Arc light. No one knows who this pen belonged to. It seems to belong to no one in this house at all. Its spotless nib has never touched ink. It's bright and polished. It remains unnervingly new. When it was found, it lay there in silence, tempting the hand that discovered it. Pick it up. Write something. The first intruder to find and accept his invitation without hesitation. He took up the pen and tried to write his name upon the wall. But the moment that nib touched its surface, a glimmer flashed. It flared for an instant and then died at once. In terror, he hurled the quill back onto the desk, where it resumed its patient wait for the next hand bold enough to use it. It rejects ink, it rejects paper. It rejects any attempt to write upon a flat surface. Only when someone finally carried this quill out of that story did its dim light fall upon the weapon once used to resist horrors within. A single arc light flashed, and reality itself became rewritten. Silver Nightingale Candlestick. A silver candlestick lay in the corner of a room. Having rolled by some stroke of fortune into a gap between the bedpost and cabinet, unseen by intruding thieves. Stranger still, when it was later set upright on the table. Again, not a single scratch marked its silver surface. The silver eyes of the nightingale watch each visitor. Candlelight flickers in its round pupils, though it is nothing but a cold, lifeless object. Its gaze seems touched by something, almost alive. It once watched many people. This way among them, a little girl clutching a rag doll. Even with the window shut tight, the flame atop the candlestick will sometimes tremble. Hold your breath, stop walking. A faint, clear bird song seems to rise from somewhere, just up ahead, beneath frozen silver. A bird does not exist, is trying to sing, singing an ancient nursery rhyme. The silver statue of Turfiscore? I'll go with that. A collector's piece from Florence, Italy. An elegant goddess sits upon a pedestal, plucking the strings of her 7-stringed lyre. The silversmith who cast her claimed he had seen a true muse with his own eyes, and that the statue was shaped from that single blinding glimpse of the divine. Those who came here later could never understand how such a finely crafted statue, so obviously valuable, escaped the looting of that night. But the goddess offers no answers. Her shining surface only reflects one visitor after another. When midnight falls, the goddess' fingers seem to tremble in the dim candlelight. The silver statue plucks at the absent lyre from afar, and the drifting melody that follows is so distant and unreal that one cannot tell whether it's a trick of the mind or true descent of a muse, ancient, sorrowful, and shaped like a farewell. Golden tattered page. A golden scroll rumored to have written in human blood by Venetian alchemists. They really like Venetian alchemists, don't they? Recording secret knowledge from forgotten corners of the European continent. It was once locked away on the deepest shelf of the library, where only those bearing the manor's bloodline were permitted to touch it. Plainly, the bandits did not believe the library was a place where money or classics would be hidden. They passed by it. They made no attempt to force upon its sealed door. Perhaps that was the Shangane's one and only stroke of good luck that evening. I had to collect like 15 of these for story 3, so I will read it another video. And then I gotta collect more coral. A vivid red treasure drawn from the Mediterranean, remade as an ornament, rare and beautiful. It was said to once hold the force of life itself, to ward off disaster, drive away evil, and above all, protect the children of the house from harm. Whew. A treasure of uncertain origin gleaming through dust and cobwebs, where the gilt has peeled away the cup's true weight, is revealed it was never as solid as it wished to seem. The coins within, bright and untarnished, say nothing to prove everything. Cursed Sapphire. Legend has it that the sapphire necklace originated in the 14th century Milan, Italy. It is inlaid with blessed sapphire oval cut, containing silk-like rutile, or is it rutile? I don't know. That forms a 6-rayed star. The base was hand-formed by the Florentine Goldsmiths Guild of the same period. Some also say it was a former collection of the Visconti family, passing into England through the hands of continental collectors in the 16th century, and later inherited by the Winston family to this day. Among comic folk, the story of this necklace has become another version, like many noble secrets. It comes from my relative who used to work at the manor. According to that relative, old Winston, who died at the age of 99, wore this necklace his entire life, and never took it off, although ultimately he didn't survive that scarlet fever summer in an era where ordinary people lived to be 60 or 70 at most. His life was long enough, but saying he lived to be 99 isn't entirely accurate. That relative said he worked at the manor for 5 years and only saw old Winston once. At the same time, old Winston was around 80. But he looked far younger than that number. However, he gave the impression of an old tree with a rotten core. The bark was still alive, but the inside had long been empty. He lived in isolation deep within the Winston Manor, year-round. If his son hadn't held up a grand funeral for him that summer, everyone probably would have thought he had been dead for years. I can't wait for this to open. Now finally, the quest lore. Can you smell it? Harold took a deep breath as if tasting fine wine. A rich old mold. This manor has been empty for at least 10 years. 10 years and 3 weeks, I corrected him. The murder took place on October 22, 10 years ago. The iron gate was unlocked. Warrior gave it a push. The rusted hinge on the handle let out a long, strained groan, as if the manor itself was protesting our arrival. But the protest was useless. Our employer wanted a report far more detailed than the police's half-hearted record, and we needed the money. Warrior crouched by the door to inspect it. Forced from the outside, he said, running his finger along the warped latch. At this force, they probably used a hammer or axe. Or an axe. Bandits, I asked. Maybe. Or someone curious who came later. He stood and headed for the foyer. Or is it foyer? I don't remember. A framed obituary on the table in the foyer caught our attention. Arthur Winston, 45. His wife Isabella Winston, 38. And their child, Jules Winston, 8. Were tragically killed at Winston Manor on the night of October 22nd, 1863. May they rest in peace. Who put this here, I asked. Warrior glanced at me. Relatives, police, or the parish? Someone must have come in after the murder, at least to handle the bodies and the aftermath. He had a point, and I nodded. But placing the obituary where everyone would see it, it felt less like mourning and more like a warning. It seemed to say, to anyone who entered, you know what happened here. The visitor register was coated in dust. The pages inside were still intact. The last entry, October 15th. Mrs. E. Parkinson. Afternoon tea. After that, nothing but blanks. Warrior flipped through the pages and stopped. One page has been torn out. He leaned in. I leaned in. He was right. After the October 15th entry, a page had been ripped out at the root, leaving jagged edges. The pages after it were blank. The missing page should be a day after October 15th, I said. Sometime between the 16th and the 21st. A note was nailed to the back of the servant's room door. The nail had rusted brown, the writing was neat but hurried. The kind that tries to look calm while racing the clock. Wages settled, no leaving the estate today. No signature, no date. The servants were gone before the murder, I said. All of them paid off and gone. Someone knew what was going to happen early. Sage's voice was a question. Oh, yeah, never mind. But it sounded more like a statement. I wrote it down in my notebook. I drew 2 lines under the word servants. Hey, look at this, Harold said, shining his flashlight on the wall beside the bed in the far corner. Mr. Winston kept nailing boards up at night. God, when will I get a decent night's sleep? It was a crooked line of handwriting, clearly a servant's complaint about living conditions. I made note of it too. So Arthur Winston knew something was coming. Sage had clearly reached the conclusion she wanted. According to the police report from that time, when they arrived at the house, they found every window nailed and boarded shut from the inside. They could hardly remove them as evidence from within, so they had to break them open from the outside. The job was clumsy, Warrior said, but deliberate. He must have feared someone outside. What he feared still got in, I said. I regretted the moment I spoke it. It sounded like a line from a bad novel. No one laughed, because Warrior was crouched beside the window near the dining room, on the side of the parlor, inspecting a board. The board had been pried open from the outside before the police arrived. It was the only one disturbed. That was the point of entry. Warrior pushed open the dining room door. It was not locked, not even fully closed. As the door swung inward, the dust rose in the draft and spiraled through the flashlight beam like a tiny blizzard. He saw the table set for 3. That was the first detail that truly hit me after entering this house. The porcelain plates were broken, but the pieces still lay where they had fallen, as if someone smashed them with a fist. Yet white shards of china still formed a rough circle. The silver knives and forks lay crooked across the table, blackened with tarnish. 3 crystal glasses, 2 large, 1 small. The smallest one stood untouched. No guest place, just 3 members of the family. That night, they were only having an ordinary dinner together. A bottle of red wine had been knocked onto the floor. The bottle itself was intact, the cork in place. Wine had once leaked from its mouth, spread across the floor, 10 years ago, then dried into a dark red stain on the stone tiles. Irregular, in shape like blood, but it was not blood. Blood was elsewhere. I had been avoiding the walls, but the flashlight did not care. It lit whatever it wanted. Behind the dining table was the wall was covered in a huge smear of dried blood. Blood had been sprayed from a certain height. and with a certain force forming an uneven radial pattern across the wall. 10 years had turned bright red into deep rust brown, nearly blending in with the peeling dark wallpaper. Unless you looked closely, you might think it was part of the pattern. But it was not. It was a human-shaped outline. On the dining room mantel once stood an exquisite clock, the kind often seen in the saloons of old aristocratic homes. Wedgwood or Spode, it had been shattered and fallen behind the mantel. It did not look deliberately smashed. The debris suggested it had been knocked down in chaos. The pieces were scattered on the floor, but the clock's movement still sat inside the largest shard of porcelain, its hand intact. 9:17. That's the time of death, Sage said, rising from the fireplace. When the clock fell, it stopped at that moment. October 22nd, 1863, 9:17 p.m. Late October in Yorkshire, 9:17 p.m. Just after dark. The family was having dinner. Perhaps Arthur was about to open wine. Perhaps Jules was complaining about the peas. Perhaps Isabella was saying something so ordinary it would have been forgotten by morning. Then the intruders arrived. In the dining room, I found a letter inside the sideboard. Fine paper, folded in thirds, no envelope. It had not even been sealed yet. I opened it carefully. It was Arthur Winston's handwriting, neat but stained. Dear William, I trust this finds you well. Lately we have heard dogs barking and horses on the road late at night. I fear bandits may be near. I have written to the Sheriff Barnes and asking for more patrols, but you know the police in Yorkshire. One sheriff for 60 square miles of moorland. What can I expect? Isabella is deeply unsettled, and Jules had begun to have nightmares. Though I have boarded and nailed every window and door, it does not feel enough. If you have any contacts in London, please help arrange private guards to come after the 25th. I will bear the cost. The kitchen told another story. There were bloody footprints on the floor. Bare feet or indoor slippers. Small ones, a woman's. They came from the dining room, through the kitchen towards the back door. In places. The prints overlapped in confusion. She had fallen, gotten up, and kept running. The cabinets had been ransacked. Someone shoved them open in a panic, looking for a weapon or for a way out. A pot lay on the floor. Plates were shattered everywhere. On the windowsill was a clear, bloody handprint. A small hand, fingers up as if trying to climb. Sage stepped forward to inspect it. She said nothing at first, only raised her flashlight and then lowered it again and again over the print. Blood from two people, she said, at last. By shape and size, the handprint is one person's, an adult woman, but the blood in the fingerprints, it may come from two different sources. There are drops between the prints. She was running with someone's blood dripping from her. Was she carrying Jules, I asked. Or was she wounded herself and stepped in blood in the dining room? Sage stood calm. Her voice stayed calm. The back door. Warrior checked it, locked and bolted from the inside. She didn't leave through the back door, he said. Then where did she go? The study was the one room in the manor where Winston felt less like a victim and more like a person. In the dining room, he had only been a human outline. In the letter, he was a terrified husband and father, but in the study, he was whole. He had habits. He had secrets. When Warrior opened the door, we saw what this room had been. Spared better than the others, though not spared well. It had been torn apart. Books had been ripped from the shelves, thrown to the floor. Papers were swept off the desk. Drawers were yanked out and dumped upside down, their contents scattered across the room. But the fireplace was stuffed with charred paper, a lot of them. Not one or two letters, but stacks of documents crammed into the fire. The safe, Warrior said, pointing beside the desk. A plain wooden cabinet on the outside with an iron safe hidden inside. 2 square feet. The door had been forced open, or rather smashed open. The hinges were ruined, the iron door hanging crooked to one side. It was empty. Professionals, Warrior said. And they knew where the safe was. This wasn't ransom. They did their homework. Harold pulled a crumpled sheet from the pile of papers. To be exact, 2 halves pulled into 2. A wanted notice. He fitted the 2 halves together. Standard county court notice. Rough print. Yellowed paper. It showed 3 male sketches, crude police drawings with strong features. Not exact, but unmistakable. All 3 wore coarse jackets. All had beards. And all looked dangerous. Under the images were the names. The Shane Gang. Leader Daniel Shane. Patrick Doyle. Colin Fleming. Charges: robbery, arson, murder. Reward: £20 for information leading to their capture. Arthur knew who was after his manor, I said. More than knew. Harold turned over the notice over. This was torn deliberately. Look at the tear. Straight down the middle, clean pull. Why tear up a wanted notice? Warrior asked. Anger, Harold guessed. Or fear, Sage said. Sometimes people tear up what frightens them, as if that can destroy the threat itself. Warrior found 3 letters, all exchanged between Arthur and Sheriff Barnes. I laid them out by date. First, September 28. Arthur to Barnes. Sheriff Barnes, strange men have been seen near the estate lately. My gamekeeper spotted 2 ragged men on the edge of the north wood last Thursday. Please send someone to inspect that area. The area is 2nd. October 5. Barnes to Arthur. Mr. Winston, I have dispatched my deputy. No irregularities were found. However, given the reports of drifter activity in the neighboring county, I advise you tighten security and keep the servants indoors at night. 3rd October 12th, Arthur Barnes to the sheriff. The situation is worsening. My dogs have barked through 3 nights in a row, all facing the woods west of the manor last night. I saw fire in the distance, like campfire. They are so close. I beg you to act. A single deputy's patrol is not enough. My wife and daughter are here. October 12th, 10 days before the murder. After that? I asked. There should be more. Harold said, still searching. Nothing. 10 days. What happened in those 10 days? Did Barnes answer? Did he send more men? Or was a manor's lord's fear nothing in a county sheriff's 600 square miles? This, Sage said, coming in from the corner of the study, a paper in hand. She did not hand it to me. She read it aloud. A prescription. Chloral hydrate. 10 drops a night for sleep. Dr. Hall's signature. The date is 1863. Patient A. Whiston. What is chloral hydrate? Harold asked. A sedative, Sage said. Also a sleeping drug. Very strong. 10 drops are enough to keep an adult man asleep till morning. Hard to wake. He was so afraid he couldn't sleep, I said. He had not slept properly since September. Or longer, Sage said, setting the prescription on the desk. September was finally when he saw a doctor. The insomnia may have started earlier. A man alone in this manor, wife and young daughter, depending on him. Bandits circling outside, police useless. He boarded the windows, dismissed the servants, and still the nightmare would not let him go. On Arthur's desk, I noticed a frame laying face down. The stand was folded shut, as if someone had deliberately knocked it over. I turned it over and inspected it, and found a newspaper clipping hidden in the loose backing. It was cut from the local paper, dated August 1863. Local news. The Woodley family of Woodley Farm near Harrogate, in the neighboring county, was brutally robbed and murdered by drifters last week. Mr. John Woodley, 52, and his wife and both sons were killed that night. The property was stripped clean. Police suspect wandering bandits and are investigating. Arthur had hidden this clipping behind the frame, not displayed, hidden. Maybe he did not want Isabella to see it. Maybe he read it every day to remind himself that danger was real. Maybe both. I tucked the clipping into my notebook. A man reads a report of a family slaughtered in a neighboring county. He begins to lose sleep. He starts taking sleeping pills. He writes to the sheriff. He sends the servants away. He nails the window shut. He pleads for help from his brother in London. He does everything he can. And he still dies. So do his wife and 8-year-old daughter. The foot of the stairs to the second floor was like a witness that would not speak yet, could not keep silent. In scraps of blood, it told us what we were about to find. First, there was a shred of coarse hemp caught in the banister, gray-brown fabric, rough fiber, matching the clothing described on the wanted notice for the Shane gang. In Arthur's study, 10 years of dust had made it look as though it had grown there on its own. Warrior plucked it 3 and held it under a lantern, torn off in a struggle or snagged while running. And then there was blood. Up the stairs ran a broad, dark smear, as if someone had been dragged or had crawled upward badly wounded. There were nail marks on the handrail. I did not go up at once. I stood at the foot of the stairs, flashlight raised, watching the bloody trail vanish into darkness at the turn of the landing. Someone 10 years ago, Isabella, most certainly Isabella, fled the dining room after her husband fell and ran through the kitchen, found the back door locked, and then turned back or was overtaken, clawed her way up the stairs. She had gripped the rail as she climbed. Her nails had left their marks in the wood. Family portrait. There's a painting here. Harold's voice drifted down from above. He had already gone ahead, a reckless treasure hunter that he was. I followed and saw an oil painting on the wall, a large family portrait. Arthur, Isabella, and young Jules. Formal posture, formal clothing, formal expressions. Arthur sat in the center in a dark suit, stern but not cruel, a man in his early 40s. The painting must have been painted a few years before the murders. Isabella sat to his right, with dark blonde hair, and a face that perhaps once had been gentle, although the painter had stiffened into proper dignity. Jules stood between them, in a white dress holding a rag doll. An ordinary Victorian family portrait. If not for the slash across Arthur's face, a sharp blade or dagger carved diagonally from upper left to lower right, cutting right through him. The canvas had split open, and under the flashlight, Arthur's face looked torn in two, the plaster wall showing through the wound. The frame hood hung crooked on the nail, as if it might fall any moment. The intruders did that, warrior said. Spite after looting or simple malice. They only got Arthur's face, Sage pointed out. They left Isabella and Jules untouched. Maybe it was just a wild slash that happened to cross him, warrior said, unimpressed. The second floor was darker than the first, because the windows here had also been boarded up from the inside, and the police had not pried them open. The flashlight could only reach 5 or 6 feet ahead. Beyond that lay darkness so thick it seems to have weight. Our shadows shivered along the walls, like 4 restless ghosts. Here, warrior stopped in the middle of the corridor and pointed at the floor, a second human outline. This time it was on the hallway floor, between the master bedroom and the nursery, smaller than the one in the dining room. A slimmer figure, narrower shoulders. The blood had dried into a crust so dark it was almost black. There was a bloody handprint on the wall, larger and clearer, than the one on the kitchen windowsill. 5 fingers spread wide, palm pressed flat against the wallpaper. But this time the print pointed toward the far end of the corridor, toward the nursery. Isabella, Sage's voice trembled slightly. I knew at once it was not fear. It was anger. She came up from downstairs, reached the corridor, and here I did not want to say the word died. She was stopped before she could reach the nursery. Sage crouched and examined it again. She fell facing the end of the hall. You can tell from the direction of the outline her last position was toward the nursery. She had been trying to reach her daughter's room, but she never made it. The master bedroom was the second largest room upstairs. Its great mirror had been smashed. Shards from entire glass lay scattered across the floor, glinting dully in the flashlight beam. 10 years of dust had robbed them of their sharp reflection, but they were still there like 1,000 dimmed eyes. The dressing table drawers had been pulled out. Inside was the delicate green velvet jewelry box, of course already empty. That was one of the reasons they came, warrior said. But one thing on the dresser table had not been taken. A prayer book, left open. 10 years had yellow and curled the pages, but inside the words were clear. Between them a lock of a golden child's hair tied for ribbon. The ribbon was blue, embroidered with the letter J. It was Jules. Inside Isabella's prayer book was her daughter's baby hair. It was the mother's custom back in those days to keep the child's first lock tied for ribbon and hidden in a book she cherished most. I looked at the strand of gold, 10 years, and its color barely faded. Harold was searching the wardrobe in the master bedroom. The door stood open. Arthur's side had been torn apart. Coats were emptied, shirt pockets were turned out, clothes thrown to the floor. Isabella's side was more or less intact, dresses still hanging, dust settled on the shoulders. There was a trunk at the bottom. Harold dragged a leather case from the wardrobe base. The lock had been pried open. The intruders have searched there too. There was little of value left. A stack of old letters. I skimmed them quickly. Most from Arthur's father, harsh and cold, the unusual voice of patriarchy and correspondence. There was also a faded photograph from the writing on the back. It appears to be an earlier Winston family portrait. Arthur was still a boy, standing beside a stern-faced man. The man, Arthur's father, stared straight into the camera with a disturbingly empty look. Winston Senior, Harold said. I'd seen him in the archives. The last Manor Lord supposedly died of stroke. I did not take the photo, as I usually would. Those empty eyes unsettled me, not because they were frightening, but because they expressed nothing. No love, no hate. Just empty. The nursery was small, about 12 square feet. Toys were strewn across the floor. A half-finished hand-sewn doll. Its head seemed already split, lay face down in the center. Blocks were scattered everywhere. Under the dust, I made out G-J-U-L-E. Someone had once used those blocks to spell Jules' name. Back in the corner, between the bed and the wall, a small space only a child could curl into, sat a pair of brand new children's shoes. Black leather, copper buttons, nearly unworn. They were placed side by side, perfectly neat. That detail broke me. Not the blood, not the axe marks, not the human shape on the wall. It was the shoes. The thought of a little girl hiding under the bed, taking off her shoes to keep quiet. It made me think of my daughter. Here, Warrior said, from the other side of the bed. He had found something. A dagger. The blade was about 8 inches long, stained with blood. The hilt was wrapped in coarse hemp. The same material as the torn cloth by the stairs. The blade had a nick in it, as if it struck something hard. Bone, maybe. Furniture. Cheap, rough. Not a gentleman's weapon. The kind a laborer or drifter might carry. It was one of the murder weapons left behind by the police after the killings. They threw it down here, Warrior said, wrapping it in his handkerchief. They didn't care about the evidence. That means they aren't afraid of being traced. Either they knew they could get called away, or did not care. They must have had other weapons too, Sage said. She stood at the door, not entering. It was the first time I had seen her stop outside a room, and refused to come in. Jules' bedside held a thick stack of drawings. I went through them one by one. The bottom one showed a garden. The next showed the sun. A bouquet, and a brown 4-legged creature, probably a dog. Above all was a picture of 3 people holding hands in front of a house. The tallest was labeled Dad, the middle Mom, and the smallest me. There was also a Christmas tree and gifts beneath it, and a big star drawn in red crayon. Typical drawings from an 8-year-old, sunlight, garden, family, holidays. A child loved and sheltered. Then came the top sheet, completely different. No color, only black crayon pressed so hard it nearly tore the paper. It showed a human shape, not Dad, not Mom, but a blurred figure. It stood beside the bed, not Jules' bed. A Jules' bed, no face, only a silhouette. As heavy as a shadow. Under Jules' bed was a large toy chest. In its false bottom I found a folded note in Isabella's handwriting. I knew her writing from the prayer book in the dressing room. Same round, neat cursive. This note was more hurried, with unnatural pauses between the strokes. If anything happens, hide under the bed. Stay quiet. Mother will come for you. Oh! A mother's survival plan for her 8-year-old daughter. Hidden in the false bottom of a toy chest because if it were left out in the open, the child would be afraid every day. But inside the hidden compartment opened only when needed. This was the best Isabella could do. Like Arthur, she did everything she could. She taught her daughter how to hide, how to be silent. And Jules did as told. She heard something, and hid under the bed. The largest room on the second floor was a gallery better preserved than the others. It was almost nothing. Here was easy to move. On the table lay a white funeral cloth. Not addressed, a funeral cloth. It was not folded neatly, but it had clearly been placed there on purpose. Beside it were several candles, wax frozen on the floor. There was also an open prayer book, another one I picked up. The pages were yellowed and brittle, but the text was clear. I stopped at the book of Job. The Lord gave, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. The Lord gives, the Lord takes, Sage translated in a soft voice. These were left after the murder. Warrior judged. The cloth, the candles, the prayer book. Someone came after it happened. The one who handled the aftermath. Maybe a relative. Maybe the parish priest. The obituary downstairs must have come from him too. He held some kind of rite for the dead. Only briefly. Look at the candles. Less than an hour. 3 lives, 1 hour. This time their prayers were heard? Beneath the prayer book in the gallery was a neat official record. A copy of the county court file. Formal paper, header from Yorkshire Magistrates' Court. The clerk's hand was neat, cold, and emotionless. Case number 1863, YK0347. Case, Winston Manor Massacre. Victims, Arthur Winston, 45, Isabella Winston, 38, Jules Winston, 8. Time of the incident, October 22nd, 1863. Also, I'm just realizing this woman was 30 when she had this child. All 3 victims died from blade wounds and blunt force trauma. Manor was ransacked. Suspects remaining members of the Shane gang. Leader Daniel Shane, members Patrick Doyle and Colin Fleming at a large status. Suspects still wanted, investigation ongoing. There was a full record of the tragedy, at least what the police believed. The Shane gang, 3 Roman criminals, behind a string of robberies and murders in Yorkshire and neighboring counties, had supposedly scouted the manor for days, and then broke in through a side window on the night of October 22nd. They murdered Arthur at dinner, chased Isabella when she tried to flee, broke into the nursery and killed Jules as she hid under the bed. They looted the safe, the jewelry box, everything of value, and disappeared into the moorlands of Yorkshire night. 3 killers, 3 victims, a manor empty for 10 years. Before leaving, I decided to return to the study. That pile of burned paper still bothered me. The others agreed. We searched the room again. Warrior used the fire tongs, still hanging on the mantel, to carefully sift through the ashes. Most of the paper had been burned down to a pale gray flakes that crumbled at touch. But in the corner of the hearth, where the fire had not reached evenly, a few fragments survived, half charred, edges blackened, but with some words still visible. The 4 of us crouched before the fireplace like we were performing the least holy prayer imaginable. The first fragment, undeniably devoured by flame. Second fragment, few numbers, perhaps a ledger. £120, £45, October, and then burned away. Third fragment, the largest piece. I lifted it before the flashlight with tweezers. The writing was hurried and messy, ink smeared in places. What remained came in broken pieces, like fragments of a fever dream. I could no longer sleep for fear. Those eyes watching me as before. Must not let. That was all beyond the blackened edges and ash. Arthur's handwriting, Harold confirmed it, after comparing it with the letter to his brother in London. Same man, but not the same state. The letter was tense but controlled. "This is broken?" Sage said. "Whose eyes?" I asked. No one answered. Eyes. I suddenly thought of the faded father and son photograph, of old Winston's hollowed stare. What was Arthur writing back? Those eyes? What was he afraid of? Jules? Isabella? Or his own father's from memory? Must not let it. Must not let what? Let them in? Let the family suffer? Let something else? Back at the inn, I began writing my first report for my employer. I read the police report again, with all of its errors and omissions. Once more I saw the line, thick oak boards, 4-inch nails, driven in so densely we could scarcely remove them as evidence from the inside. In the end, we had to tear them loose from the outside. The first time I read it, I saw only one more sign of police incompetence. But now I checked my notes again, and saw the servant's complaint. It's recorded there too. A wild thought began to take shape in my mind. I knocked on my companions' doors, and told them we needed to go back once more.
In the bitter winter of 1873, I entered that grim mansion to raise funds for my daughter's treatment. 10 years earlier, it had been the scene of the Yorkshire massacre that shocked the county. According to the police report, Shane and 3 drifters pried open a window, slaughtered Arthur Winston and his family, ransacked the house, and vanished without a trace. 10 years later, my team and I pushed open the metal gate. At first, everything matched the record. 3 place settings still sat on the dining table. A human-shaped blood spatter marked the wall. The clock had stopped at 9:17. In the study lay an unsent plea for help. Bloodstains led upstairs. The bedrooms had been stripped bare. But the cracks in the story remained. The charred manuscript in the fireplace was clearly not the work of common bandits. Then there were the servants' complaints about Arthur Winston. If he was so afraid that he spent his nights nailing the windows shut, why did the family stay instead of fleeing like the servants? Back at the inn, as I drafted my first report for my employer, I read that line from the police record again. Thick oak boards, 4-inch nails, driven in so densely that we could scarcely remove them as evidence from the inside. In the end, we had to tear them loose from the outside. A mad thought began to take shape in my mind. Perhaps the nightmare of Winston Manor had never come from beyond the sealed windows.
Ooh, that was so much reading! I'm glad I did this though. Once I get the final S-Rarity Classics, I'll read those out to ya. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this will be a wonderful audiobook for ya. If you're bored or just need something to listen to while doing a chore. And see you later!